Hey guys, welcome back. This is podcast number 2 in chapter 6, when today we are going to look specifically at photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the process of producing glucose. Okay, notice the OSC ending here, it's a sugar, by combining water, or H2O, and carbon dioxide, CO2. And this is a very general description of photosynthesis. There's a lot of steps that go into it, but we're going to be looking at, in general, from start to finish, what's the process, what do we get? And we can write a chemical reaction for this. And so we're looking at taking water, okay, and we need 6 waters to do this. So 6 H2O plus 6 CO2, or 6 carbon dioxides, because we need 1 carbon dioxide for every water. And we mash those together and we get C6H12O6. This is the glucose. That's your sugar. And then we get 6 oxygens floating out as part of that. And right here in the middle, that middle step, or that arrow, is representing where light, okay, because plants need light. This is where the light comes into play in this chemical reaction. And photosynthesis is actually a combination of 2 processes. The first one is the light reaction, and the second is the Calvin cycle. And these are like 2 wheels on a car. They're both running at the same time. They're both cycling at the same time to produce this reaction. They work together. And the light reaction is when water is hit with light photons, or energy from light. So light is coming in, okay, as a wave. So each of these arrows is representing light, and the water is split. It's broken by the light into oxygen. Okay, so that's the first part of the reaction, and what ends up happening is we produce another chemical called ATP. And ATP is energy. Okay, ATP is energy, and what the ATP does is it comes into the Calvin cycle and it allows the rest of the process to happen. So we've got the water being produced into oxygen, and then the carbon dioxide in the Calvin cycle is taken, picks up some energy from the ATP, so this will slide in here, and in turn that produces glucose, C6H12O6, or sugars. And then it cycles again, it goes back. So water again is split, produces an ATP molecule, which then fuels the carbon dioxide turning into glucose. So if we look at a picture of it, this is what we've got going on. So we start with water happening inside the thylakoid, the chlorophyll. Okay, so the light comes in and we're producing this ATP molecule right there. The ATP then goes in and gives energy to the Calvin cycle, which takes the carbon dioxide and produces sucrose as a product, or glucose as a product. Okay, so we've got 2 processes happening here, the light reaction and the Calvin cycle. And now the tricky thing with chlorophyll is that not all light is used in photosynthesis. There's actually 2 forms of chlorophyll, it's A and B. And so we've got a picture down here, or a graph, and you need to write in the wavelengths, or you need to, if you have colored pencils, shave in the colors. But what we can see is that chlorophyll B, this is showing absorbance over here on the left, so how much is it taking in? Chlorophyll B really takes in a lot of energy. If you draw a line down, it takes in a lot of this blue wavelength right in here. Chlorophyll A does the same, but it's on the other end of the spectrum, and it kind of takes in this orangish, reddish wavelength. Everything down here means there's very low absorbance. So if this was 0 and 100, we'd have very, very low absorbance down here. Notice where this low absorbance is. It's right here in this green wavelength. This is why plants are green, because plants, or the chlorophyll specifically, does not take in that green wavelength of light. So if we're looking at a rainbow, that green is the one that's bouncing back to our eyes from the plant. So according to the graph above, which colors of light are best absorbed by chlorophyll? And then which color is the least absorbed? Okay, so remember, chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B both absorb different colors, so take your peak, draw a line down, and you get those colors for the best absorbed. And then which one is the lowest? And that explains again why plants are the color that they are.
Summary of respiration. No details at this point, just a summary. We start off with glucose, which is a 6-carbon ring. In the first step, this is broken into 2 3-carbon molecules called pyruvates. This step is called glycolysis. The second step is where each of these 3-carbon pyruvates is made into a 2-carbon molecule. The third carbon is taken away, oxygen arrives, takes it away, CO2. So our 3-carbon molecule has become a 2-carbon molecule, and this is called the link reaction. This 2-carbon molecule then enters the Krebs cycle. In the Krebs cycle, we have a 4-carbon molecule. Our 2-carbon molecule meets the 4-carbon molecule to create a 6-carbon molecule. 1 carbon is broken off to make it 5-carbon, another carbon is broken off to make it 4-carbon molecule again, so it can then meet another 2, etc., etc. This is the Krebs cycle. The purpose of the Krebs cycle is to charge up temporary energy carriers. These temporary energy carriers then go to the electron transport chain, where they are used to charge up ATP. Lots of it. We end up with 34 of the 38 ATPs made charged up here in the electron transport chain. We can go back through and say this is happening in the cytoplasm. By this I mean glycolysis. The link reaction, everything beyond this point, is occurring in the mitochondria. The link reaction and the Krebs cycle occurring just in the matrix of the mitochondria, while the electron transport chain occurs on the inner membrane, which is also called the cristae. So that is a brief overview of respiration without any of the details that you will need for higher level IB biology.
That was a quick overview of the visual image of what photosynthesis and cellular respiration looks like. So now I'm going to explain to you what exactly photosynthesis and cellular respiration is. Photosynthesis. This is when carbon dioxide and water, with the addition of energy from the sun, are used to produce glucose and oxygen. And there are 2 sets of reactions that take place. Light dependent and light independent. No light's needed. The chemical reactions that occur in cellular respiration are, this is a different step, glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. In glycolysis, it is responsible for the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, through the degradation of glucose. Now, there are 10 steps. You're probably wondering, why are there so many steps? Because each has to facilitate the different enzymes. Now, all the reactions occur in the cytoplasm, and then it can take place with or without oxygen. Now, glycolysis, it uses glucose, 2-PI, 2-ADP, and 2-NAD to produce 2-pyruvate, 2-ATP, 2-NADH, 2 hydrogens, and 2 water molecules. And the net energy gained from this reaction is 2 ATPs and 2 NADHs and 2 pyruvates in the end. But although glycolysis isn't really very efficient. The next step we have is pyruvate oxidation. Pyruvate oxidation is found in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Now, pyruvate oxidation occurs in 3 simple steps. The pyruvate is oxidized, so it goes from 3C to 2C acetyl, and then you're going to have a carbon atom that is released as a result. Now, your NAD is going to be reduced to NADH. And then last but definitely not least, your pyruvate is going to dehydrogenase into a complex that attaches itself to a coenzyme to acetyl, and then it will in the end yield 2 NADHs. Our third process, Krebs cycle, otherwise known as citric acid cycle. It creates 2 ATP molecules, 6 NADHs, allows an energy storage and transfer, 2 molecules of FADH, and 4 molecules of carbon dioxide. And last but definitely not least is oxidative phosphorylation. It occurs in the mitochondrial membrane. NADH is oxidized by electron carriers. The energy is created that creates a proton gradient. It drives chemiosmosis. In the end, it creates 32 or 34 ATPs. Oxygen is the final acceptor, and then as a result of this, water is produced and released into the membrane. And that was the 4 simple steps of cellular respiration. Now I'm going to explain to you what happens in the light dependent and light independent stage. Usually the light-independent stage we have mainly 3 steps. Carbon fixation. That's where the C3 cycle begins with the 6-RUBP, which is a 5-carbon sugar, but you know that it combines with the 6 CO2 molecules to form an extremely unstable 6-carbon compound that is immediately able to react with water, and it will split into 2 forms. So PGA, which is a carbon from CO2, and it is then fixed into a stable compound. Then the second step is synthesis of G3P. Now, as you know, it's a series that will be able to catalyze the enzyme reactions that comes about by ATP and NADPH. And then the third and final step will be the regeneration of RUBP. Now, this happens through the reactions using ATP, and then it's about 10 of the 12 G3 molecules will regenerate this into 6 molecules of RUBP. Now, that's used at the start of carbon fixation. That helps to keep the C3 cycle going. And then, for the light-dependent reactions, it occurs in 2 parts: light reactions and the Calvin cycle. The cycle mainly occurs within the chloroplasts, as you know. These are found for the cell sacs called thylakoids. The stacked bundles of these are called granules. And the thylakoid contains a chlorophyll. As you know, chlorophyll is a pigment that helps to absorb the light that comes from the sun. And now, as you go into the steps, we have the light is absorbed by the chlorophyll, causing a transfer of any electrons and hydrogen atoms from the H2O molecule that are already there. Now, you're probably wondering, wait, what have I learned from this yet? Then you're going to realize that this causes the water molecules split into oxygen and hydrogen ion. And the second part of this is that the oxygen is released from what we breathe, and the hydrogen bonds bond to NADP to create NADPH. The third step is that ATP is formed. It is formed through phosphorylation, and then the ADP gets a phosphate group added, creating ATP. And the last, but not the final stage, is the fourth step. The NADPH and the ATP created here, they go on to fuel the reactions in the second part of photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle.